So it is one of the most effective things you can do as a homeowner to make a difference
Mm-hmm.
to the world with respect to climate is by going solar. So please do not delay because our planet our planet will be fine. We'll just be dead. We need to make a difference if we want to make this planet a planet where our children and grandchildren are going to be able to
Exactly.
enjoy. Make that decision now to go solar. It's not only a great decision from a cost-effective perspective, but your grandchildren and their children are going to thank you for the decision you make today.
Hello, this is Izumi Tanaka with Home Green Homes Podcast. We are talking about solar today. Because I am a green realtor, I hear from many solar companies to promote solar panels for homeowners. And honestly, I've always had some misgivings about pushing solar. Especially in California, there is a rush to install solar panels because of the transition from net energy metering 2, also known as NEM 2, to net energy metering 3 in mid-April 2023. Carol Cole-Lewis is an independent solar consultant and is socially conscious, valued-focused professional with sales, marketing, and training experiences obtained through working with individual customers and companies of all shapes and sizes and stages from startups to nonprofits to Fortune 100 corporations. Carol became an independent solar consultant in 2016 in order to inspire homeowners to gain energy independence and to reduce their energy cost. I invited Carol to explain the state of solar today and share all the things homeowners should be aware of when considering rooftop solar. Thank you so much, Carol, today for being with me. I am honored to have you. I've had so many people that I've talked to who are solar consultants, but as we made the connection, I felt the kindred soul. With your background, I really feel like you are a very good person for me to have on my podcast to talk about solar panels and and everything related. So, Carol, first of all, tell me just a little bit about where you are today as a solar consultant in the climate. Well, climate literally, figuratively, of where we are, where we have a lot of incentives out there, especially with Inflation Reduction Act, the government signed last year, and so I think a lot of homeowners are currently bombarded with advertisement from solar companies. So, can you tell us where we are in the solar world?
Wow. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. It was
Thank you.
delightful meeting with you a while ago and just sharing our conversation forth. And I'm so happy to be here for your listeners too, to help educate them, hopefully educate them so that they can enable themselves to go solar with confidence.
Hmm.
So anyway, so where are we today? It's March the 29th, 2023. Just to date this podcast, we find ourselves about 16 out from April 14th, which is here in the state of California. It's when we're actually going to be transferring over from net energy metering 2 to a new net energy metering rate plan. Now, what does that mean for homeowners and why all this big hullabaloo right now? Well, first of all, net energy metering 2 is the rate plan that we've been on for the last 10 or 15 years. What
Hmm.
net energy metering does, and I'm going to oversimplify this,
Yes.
but what net energy metering does is it
Yeah.
allows you to use the grid as a battery.
Hmm.
What's happening with net energy metering 3 is that is going away. So it
Mm.
means you will have to buy a battery in order to save all that juicy electricity you're generating during the day. You store it locally on your property and you use it at night.
Wow, this was the
That's a
best
difference.
explanation, Carol, of that. And NAM 2 and 3. This is the best simplified explanation. Thank you so much.
Super. I can go into the nitty gritty details if you
I'm
want to,
sure.
but it's
Hmm.
really not worth it. That's the main
Hmm.
thing. So really in terms of homeowners and what does that mean for a homeowner right now?
Hmm. Right.
So I do know that there are a lot of installers right now who are saying you got to go net 3 because if you sign with me today, you're going to be grandfathered in for the next 20 years into NEM 2. Well, the thing is that really a lot of this is not in our control. It's what has to happen is you have to have a signed interconnection agreement that's correct without major deficiencies.
Hmm.
And what that means is that that has to be submitted and accepted by the utility before April 14th. Okay, so for a lot of installers, first of all, gearing up to submit those interconnection applications correctly is going to be a challenge. I do know the platform that I work for, Power, POWUR, they have hired 100 people to basically cope with the influx in business. So we are able to process the interconnection applications quickly, and we are pretty confident that we'll be able to process these up to the deadline. At least we're giving ourselves an internal deadline of April the 2nd to get the interconnection application submitted. So anybody, but still, we're not making any promises because
Right.
this is a new world and we're trying the best we can and we will do it. So most people can feel reasonably secure if they sign a contract now, especially with us or with any Power representative, you will be okay. Okay, but that's what anyone ever hears is I'm going to be okay, but you don't know. We don't know. So I always say a caveat there. So we'll do the best we can.
Right. Now, so then what's the big deal about NEM3? Like you said, after April, whoever puts on the solar, they don't get the kind of the credit from the utilities. But is it that bad? I mean, if we can put in the storage, which is already, I think it's a good idea anyway, especially for areas like where we are, when we may get some power outages, by the climate conditions or some other reasons. I think it would be a good idea to put the storage. Obviously, that's a little bit more of an investment.
Personally, between you and I guess the audience too, but between us, what I'm seeing, the way I feel about this personally, this whole rush about gotta go solar before NEM2 goes away. It's like somebody telling me to buy something on sale.
Yeah.
I like, you know what, if I don't need it right now, why should I buy it on sale just because you're telling me? So to have to be pushed by your human instinct of missing out, I think is doing yourself a disservice. So the way I see the way this works is, and I think it's unfair the way that marketing has been done on this NEM2 to NEM3. Yeah, granted, of course, there is a deal to be had if you go now. But having said that, given the cost of energy going forward, and especially the move to electrification, and from what I'm seeing now in terms of NEM3, deals on batteries and things like that, you're still going to be fine because those utility rates are already PG&E territory. We've had a 19% increase in solar and in electricity rates this year alone. So those rates aren't going to slow up anytime soon. So the more you can be and I agree with you, about having the battery. Personally, I see this is a direction for climate change. If we're going to solve this climate change problem, this is where all the money is going towards batteries and to solve this energy storage problem. So you can bet in the next 5 years or so, we're going to see some really excellent battery solutions that are cost effective for the homeowner. So you can retrofit that solar system with a cheap battery, maybe from Home Depot, right? Right now it's a big deal. So who knows? The prices will go down, everything. So I see NEM3, I'm looking forward to it because I think this is a direction we have to go.
I see. So besides NEM2 and NEM3 issues, what are the things that homeowners should be looking out for? I mean, how do we shift through all the bombardment of advertisement right now for the homeowners? What can they be looking out? What should they be looking for when they're actually considering solar panels?
Well, that is a very good question and a very long question. And if you could see over my shoulder here, you can see the red books that I have on the table over there. That's my book called Go Solar with Confidence. And the reason I wrote that was specifically to answer the question that you just asked me, which is how do I know who to trust?
Right.
And what the book does is it's designed to, when you read it and when somebody knocks on your door, you will be prepared to have a cogent, coherent conversation with them confidently to know whether or not they are good for you and you are good for them. So all the information's in the book. In fact, I even priced the book at the cheapest price I could make it on Amazon so that I wouldn't have to pay them for you buying my book. So, so you can go on to Amazon, you can look it up, Go Solar with Confidence, go to Amazon and buy it. It was #1 for a while there at the beginning, but it's hard to stay #1 on Amazon. So I'm really thrilled to have it available for you. So it's there for you, and read it and good luck. So would you like me to go into some details?
Yes, well, if you can give maybe some bullet points of key points that homeowners should be aware of.
Yes. I think the first one that comes to my mind right now is that if you have a reputable installer, do not worry about the equipment so much because they will provide you with the best equipment for your job. The way that solar is right now, the panels have been around for over 50 years.
Mhm.
So you're not going to see a lot of improvement in that technology.
Mhm.
It's just not going to happen. The improvement will be on maybe the inverter side, which actually
Mhm.
converts the electricity from
I
the
see.
panel and turns
I
that
see.
into electricity. There
Mhm.
might be stuff there, but really what you're looking for, most people that come to me are looking for the cost savings.
Mhm.
So really what solar is, it's not so much of a technical decision. Don't get
Mhm.
bogged down. And here's a good
Mhm.
example, right? Do you care about what motor your car has? You really don't care what engine it is, right? But what you want to be able to do is to get from point A to point B.
Mhm.
Now, if you're a young man, you might want a Lamborghini or somebody that wants an image
Mhm.
but there's no need to do that for solar, because all you're doing is you want something that works.
Mhm.
And most installers provide you with premium equipment.
Mhm.
So that would, now, of course, now that begs the question, who's a reputable installer, right?
Right.
So you probably want to check your Better Business Bureau, and you might want to check Yelp reviews. Now, here's a
Mhm.
word of warning with any of those,
Mhm.
is that you should expect some bad reviews, no matter what the installer is,
Right.
who the installer is.
Right.
Because a good installer, any installer, should see some bad reviews. Because I don't know about you, when I go to a restaurant, the only people that say anything usually complaining about the service of the food, right? So usually people that write on Better Business or Yelp or whatever, they're complaining
Right.
about something,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
how many people? So I'm saying, if you get good service, do me a favor, go to somebody you got good service from and write a positive review for them.
Right.
So that
Right.
way
Right.
because you know how you like to see them.
Mhm.
So anyway, take that with a grain of salt in terms of
Yeah.
the reviews.
Yeah.
And there's some other things too. I mean, what else would make a reputable, the number of years that they've been doing the job, what their
Mhm.
financials look like. You're
Mhm.
going to want to make
Mhm.
sure they're going to be around to.
Mhm.
I cannot begin to tell you the number of phone calls I get from people whose installers have gone out of business because they sold the system so cheap, and their business model, they love putting solar on roofs,
Mhm.
but they're
Mhm.
really not good at scaling a business. So
Right.
they go bankrupt, and then the homeowners are like calling around, who's supporting my system? Who can support my system?
So
So
the question I have then, Carol, is there a difference between installers and the vendors or solar companies? Like we have many companies that approach us, um, and are they the installers are representative of the solar companies, or the installers are independent contractors?
very good question. And it depends, right?
Mhm.
Currently, right now, you have your SunRuns, you have your SunPowers.
Mhm.
And what they have different business models.
Mhm.
And the business model that most installers have, right, the companies, let's start with the big names that you might know
Mhm.
of right now.
Mhm.
They have trucks, they have offices, they have employees.
Mhm.
So a lot of times their installers directly represent the company, and they are
I
employed
see.
by the company. There is a
Right.
movement away from that. I do know SunPower has dealers, which
Mm.
are independent companies that are certified to be SunPower dealers.
Mhm.
So that's another type of relationships. And SunPower provides all of their equipment, their panels,
Mhm.
the inverters, everything is provided by SunPower. Financing, I know
Mhm.
SunPower have provided
Mhm.
in the past. Now, what I belong to is something different than both of those. And it's the
Mhm.
new business model that was made very uh, it's been very acceptable, and so it's everyone's moving to, because it actually helps to provide more benefit from the home for the homeowner, for buyers, is
Mhm.
this new what's called platform technology.
Mhm.
Like basically Uber put taxi companies out of business because
Mhm.
Uber doesn't own any cars,
Right.
but they have independent drivers that drive for them.
Right.
You know about EXP Realty.
Mhm.
EXP
Which I
Realty
am.
doesn't hire, right? Which
Mhm.
you are. And so
Mhm.
what you have is you're an independent realtor.
Mhm.
And you don't work for EXP. You work for
Mhm.
yourself. You're independent.
Mhm.
And I'm the
Right.
same way. I'm an
Right.
independent solar consultant with
Right.
a platform called
Mhm.
Power,
Mhm.
POWUR. And
Mhm.
now basically what Power does for me is allows me to be an independent consultant and help homeowners. They
Mhm.
provide me
Mhm.
with the proposal tools, they provide me with support, education, everything I need to support my business.
Mhm.
And then they also have a team of installers, which also
Mhm.
have to qualify to be on the Power platform, which are
Mhm.
throughout Power's 27 states. So what
Mhm.
Power serves as is the general contractor.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
they also are the buyer of the
I
equipment.
see. I
So
see.
they don't own anything,
I
right? So
see.
they're a platform. They're
I
basically
see.
software, and
Mhm.
they're combining and making relationships. And they have
Mhm.
project managers. I love
I
it
see.
because I have a project manager with Power who takes care of all of my jobs after, and so they get to handhold my customers after they've met with me and got their
I
system.
see. I
So
see. I
it's,
see.
it's a new model, new world out there, right?
Mhm. Yes, of
Mhm.
course, there are always there will always be there some more innovative companies that might show up and
Right.
provide some innovative solutions. Now, so
Mhm.
homeowners, when they're considering of putting on solars, um, should they be looking to go net zero, or should they just simply reduce the energy bill? And obviously, we are in California. You and I are both in California. In California, since 2021, I believe, any new construction single-family home has to be net zero. But I think the big market is the existing homes. Like I have a home that I would love to eventually put solar on. So should we be shooting to be net zero, or should we just simply be reducing energy
Well,
bill?
that's the first question actually, is that why would you want to go net zero? And
Right.
you and I both know it's a lot of it is a philosophy, your belief as
Mm-hmm.
to what you believe is right and good for the
Mm-hmm.
world and for
Right.
yourself and for your
Right.
family and
Right.
whatever. So,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes shooting for net energy zero, which means your house is not using more energy, it provides all of its electricity and energy that it needs.
Right.
It doesn't need to go outside of it's
Mm-hmm.
zero
Mm-hmm.
net is what that
Mm-hmm.
means. So
Mm-hmm.
so I know that right now, you're right, a lot of people are retrofitting their homes with solar, and they
Mm-hmm.
haven't even taken the first step to looking
Right.
whether or not they haven't even taken weather stripping and putting it around their windows, right?
Exactly.
That's like so
Uh-huh.
cheap, right? Why would you
Yes. Yes.
spend $30,000 on a system when you can just
Mm-hmm.
put weather stripping?
Right.
And the other thing too is I think a lot of people aren't even aware of how they are using electricity.
Mm-hmm.
I had a new customer that I was talking to last week, and
Mm-hmm.
he was shocked by over the last 4 months how much his electricity bill went up. And I said, well, what have you
Mm.
done differently? He goes, well, I got a hot tub. Does that do that much? It's like, it added like $600 to his electricity bill,
Wow.
right? And it's
Yes.
like, simple little things if you don't realize how your home
Mm-hmm.
is using electricity. So if you
Mm-hmm.
have like a lot of old appliances, those are going to
Mm-hmm.
suck power as
Right.
well. So you might want to consider trading those out. So what I
Yeah.
am telling customers, Itsumi, is that uh, if you go solar now, be aware of how you're using electricity now. And the way I look at it is that your energy electricity need usage will increase over the next 5 years because
Mm-hmm.
everything is going electric.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, your cushion is the fact that you don't have your weather stripping. You have not done some very basic, you installed a hot tub and you're using it every day of the week, whatever. So just know that you're going to have to cut back on those things or actually make some changes in your energy usage over the next 10 years in order to basically not have an electricity bill when you go solar. So
Yeah.
I use that. I use that like kind of like an energy savings account right now, I guess you
Mm.
could say. I kind of look at it that way, even
Yeah.
though, it's just another way to look at it. So
This is very interesting because, as I told you before, that it has always been a pet peeve of mine over the last 5 years or so of that I've been doing this. I always said to the solar vendors or solar salespeople, like, you guys only try to sell the solar panels as many panels as you can put on based on the current electricity bill. And I always said to people, like, the first thing you should do is to get energy audit done to understand how your energy usage is, and then do all the things like you were mentioning, weather stripping, and replace your appliance with more energy efficient ones, and insulation and that type of thing before you put solar, because otherwise you're going to be wasting a lot of energy that you're generating. But you totally converted me actually, that it is so true, because as we electrify and decarbonize our homes in the coming years, there will be more electric uh, consumption, and so we should have a little room to accommodate that. And people, you may buy or acquire a EV, or you like we have one EV right now, but we may get another EV. So we need to have a cushion to accommodate those future usage of the solar. So you um you
exactly.
you did a great job of converting me.
Oh my, not intentional. But maybe it was, I don't know.
hmm Now, so can you talk about what kind of options that homeowners have these days in terms of how to pay for the solar, unless you're lucky enough to have enough cash in the bank so that you can just pay the whole system in cash. But there are so many vendors who would approach you with the financing and options, and there's also incentives. So if you could give us a little bit of a rundown on some of the options homeowners have.
Sure. In fact, I like to say that solar is more of a financial decision than it is a technology decision.
Hmm.
And I see myself more as a financial consultant then I see myself as a technical consultant. And what do I mean by that?
Mhm.
I mean, the thing is that what you would want to sit down with a person like me, and together we're going to discuss your financial situation, what you're
Right.
looking for, how
Right.
much money you have, where is your savings, whatever. And
Mhm.
then we're going to craft the best solution for you, which would be different than somebody else. You know that even as in real estate, right? There's
Yeah.
certain ways in which you buy a home, you have to make sure
Right.
that you're doing the right job for your customer. So
Mhm.
having said that, yes, there are a variety of ways. You know as well as I do, cash is always the best return on your investment, like
Sure.
anything, right?
Mhm.
Now, the cool thing about solar with respect to paying cash for it
Mhm.
is that you are adding value to your home the minute you buy a solar system and install it.
Mhm.
Why is that? Well, it's because you're printing money on your roof, basically, because you're using electricity. It's producing electricity, which otherwise would be an expense.
Right.
You're actually adding you're adding value to your home as well. I know there have been studies done that show how much money is actually adding value to your home. You might be able to answer that question more than I can in terms of how are you seeing solar adding value to a home purchase?
Yes, there is
When you sell?
statistics. It may not be just the solar. There's definitely data that is adding value, but just to encompass the solar and the high performing homes, definitely I have seen statistics where it says almost 5% premium on the home
Interesting.
values.
And do they
Yeah.
sell faster too with solar? Does it matter how
Well,
they're financed?
well,
Just curious.
Carol, that's a great question. It really depends on how good of a job that listing agents do. Because
Right.
we as an agent, it's our responsibility to talk about why solar panels are adding values, why some of the other high performing features add benefits. And unless you can talk about the benefits, why these adding values, you can just say, well, here's solar panel, here's smart technology, but it won't likely add that values instantaneously like that.
Well, and so this actually brings us back to the original question that you talked about, which
Hmm.
actually has to be the type of ways in which you can finance a solar
Right,
purchase.
right.
So right now, what we're seeing, the loans, would you want to go and buy solar with a loan? Well, this was great last year, right? When we were seeing loans at
Sure,
about
right.
what, 0.99%?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Hmm.
And now the interest rates are 10, 11, and the feds keep raising the interest rates. So
Hmm.
loans are not as attractive as they used to be.
Right,
Now,
right.
one thing that I found is that loans, you can get, I think your best loans personally come from credit unions.
Mm.
I lived in England for so long, I don't know whether to call them credit unions or building societies. So they're credit unions here. They're credit unions. And credit unions can usually have solar loans that you can get, and they're
Okay.
usually a very competitive rate. So check out a credit union for your,
Okay,
and they usually don't have a fee attached to them too.
I see.
Like I know a lot of solar providers, solar companies will provide you with solar loans, and those have fees attached to them, sometimes
So
as high as 30%.
that's the dealership
Yes,
fee. Hmm.
yes, and they're high if you're going to need, like, if you want that lower interest rate, you're going to have the higher dealer fee because these are unsecured loans, so they're going to have to pay for them. They have to
Right,
make their money somewhere, so they make it up
right.
front, and plus there's no prepayment penalty, so you get
Hmm.
to pay these loans off fast. It's great for someone who is paying an electricity bill of $200 or $300. You can go with a solar loan that's 20-year loan, and instead of paying $200 a month, you might be paying $100 fixed cost for the next 25 years. Now, I just pulled that out of the air. I have no idea whether or not that's true. And it depends on what it is for you. And I don't
Right.
know how that would be for you, but you can normally either at least match your electricity bill or lower it at a fixed cost. And even matching what you're currently paying is going to be a better thing to do than
Right.
just watch your bill go like a roller coaster,
Right.
up and
Yeah.
down and higher and higher. That's scary. Why? Just
Well,
go to an amusement park to get
yeah.
scared. Don't
Yes,
open your electricity bill and get scared,
exactly.
right?
Yes, the utility bills tend to be on the upswing. So by
They
locking
are.
down your utility costs by having that, even if you have a payment, it still gives you
Right.
the stability of your payment, your expenses.
Can I say one more thing on this topic, though,
Of
before we move
course,
on?
of course.
Because we talked about cash and we talked about loans, the return of the lease.
Hmm.
Now, what I am seeing is a lot more customers are willing and ready to go with a lease, and they do make sense for a lot of homeowners. Number one, first of all, people like yourself understand them better now because the industry has moved on.
Yes.
The real estate market isn't as confused by these leases that appear on homes and how do we get them transferred over. Plus
Right.
the companies that provide them know how to do this too. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit easier than it was in the past.
Mhm.
The other thing and the good thing about a lease is that it's a no worry situation. No worry situation. What I mean by that, can I tell you a story?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Mhm.
We have a lease. We decided, I live on an 11-acre organic walnut farm in Northern California.
I can't believe
It's
it.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Uh-huh.
I turn my camera and show it to you, but let me just tell the story. The story is
Yes, please.
interesting. We have 4 electric meters on the property,
Mhm.
serviced by one ground mount. It's a 24 panel ground mount that we
Mhm.
have a lease on. And we don't own the system. So everyone's, and there's not a lot of maintenance to it. So I
Right.
go out there sometimes to look at it
Mhm.
just to make sure it's still alive. But I know it's
Mhm.
still working because I have an app and I can see in my app, oh yeah, that's great. Okay, all
Mhm.
good. But here's the
Mhm.
story. About 3 years ago, I live in the area with all the wildfires here in Northern
Mhm.
California.
Mhm.
And we were evacuated for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And we were at my friend's house, staying. We used to call it disaster porn, that we were looking and just checking to see, is everything okay with my house? Is everything
Yeah.
okay with my house? At one point, the fire was 200 yards from our house.
Oh,
200 yards
wow.
from our house. But the only way that we knew our system, but I didn't care because like the solar, we didn't own the solar, not my solar. I
Mm.
didn't even need it on my insurance policy, right? The
Mm.
company that owned the solar, owned my panels, had the insurance on it. So
Right,
I'm
right.
sitting pretty, but the only way I knew my house was still there was that the
Mhm.
panels were still reporting. So I was still getting notification that
Wow.
they were working. So
Yeah.
it's like, oh, we're still there. We're still there. And then we
Mm,
found it.
mm, mhm.
So yeah. So anyway, having said that, leases are not a bad thing.
Yeah.
You'll still see cost savings. And here's what you're looking for when you go with a lease. Right now,
Mhm.
I know where I am in PG&E territory, we're
Mhm.
paying, the lowest is 32 cents a kilowatt hour on average. That's like
Mm.
a gallon of gas. You know how much you pay for a gallon of gas. Well,
I have no
for
idea,
electricity, you're
actually.
paying kilowatt. Well, now have a look and check, and you'll have to calculate it. And
Mhm.
anyway, that's another story. There's tons of numbers on there that just
Yes.
tell you about buy my book. It tells you how to do the calculation. It's not
Okay.
hard. But the
Yes.
thing is that right now we're paying 30, 32, 33, some areas. I saw a bill recently, 37 cents on average a kilowatt hour. That's really expensive because
Mhm.
my solar rate that I'm locked in at with my lease is 15 cents a kilowatt hour, half the price,
Mm,
right? So I'm paying
mm,
half the price of my electricity than people
mhm.
today. And then that kilowatt hour rate is going up and up and up. Like I said, it recently 19% here in PG&E territory this year.
Mhm.
So what
Mhm.
you want to pay attention to if you decide to look at a lease or a power purchase agreement, which is fairly similar to a lease,
Mm,
you want to look at the cost per kilowatt hour. What are you buying your
mhm.
electricity at?
Mhm.
And if you
Mhm.
can get that down to where it is today or lower,
Mhm.
you're setting yourself up really well for getting cheap
Mhm.
electricity.
Mhm. Now, are there still other payment options available, such as power purchase agreement, or how about the PACE? I can't remember what PACE stands for, but it's kind of like your payment is rolled into your property tax, correct? And that had a little bad rep for a while. So if you can dissect those options a little bit, just so we have an idea.
Right. Well, looking at the power purchase agreement very quickly, I mean, I mentioned it in the same breath as leasing.
Mm-hmm.
And what the difference between the two, it's
Mm-hmm.
very similar. Although the
Mm-hmm.
difference is with a lease, you are leasing the equipment
Right.
and you get access to the electricity that equipment provides, and you can
Right.
use that
Mm-hmm.
electricity.
Mm-hmm.
What a
Mm-hmm.
power purchase agreement is that you are buying the electricity that is being produced by your system
Mm-hmm.
that someone else owns on your roof. So
Okay.
it's almost the same thing, not exactly. And in fact, what
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing is that the pricing comes back almost the same for a power
I
purchase
see.
agreement or a
Mm-hmm.
lease.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that subtlety of the nice thing about a lease is that if your system overproduces, and you get a production guarantee with a lease, if your
Mm.
system overproduces, you get the rest of the electricity for free. And if it
Mm.
underproduces, they credit you for
I see.
electricity in subsequent years. For
I see.
PPAs, you are just buying the electricity. Some of them are at fixed rate throughout the
I
year.
see. Mm-hmm.
Many of them might vary depending on how much you're buying from
Mm-hmm.
your own system.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to watch to see what kind of a power purchase agreement you enter into. One that's
I see.
basically a fixed
I see.
payment. And then
Mm-hmm.
there's also this thing called escalators on them too that you want to watch out for.
Mm.
An escalator means how much your fixed cost lease. That usually they'll set the cost for the year,
Mm-hmm.
and at the end of the year, if you have a zero escalator, your cost is not going to go up.
I
But
see.
now the cheaper, usually 2.9, 3.9% escalator is not uncommon. And you can see that if you're buying a home and you're going to be in it for 12 years, getting a 2.9 or 3.9 will be cheaper for you as the homeowner for the next 12 years or so, because those
Mm.
rates are going to be lower than they would be for a 0% escalator. However, when it comes time to sell the home, people will, a lot of it, sometimes, I don't know, I find it's easier to describe a 0% escalator than explain what an escalator is. But people, right? It's just like, and the thing is that when people buy a home, they'll still be happy to be paying maybe 20 cents a kilowatt hour when the kilowatt hour rates are now up around 50, 60 cents. So it doesn't matter. But, and even now 2.9, 3.9, that's lower than the inflation rate right now. So most people are quite happy to pay that escalator. So that's that. And then you also asked about PACE. Right. So yes, you're correct. PACE is I think they call themselves Home Run Finance right now. They've renamed the company. And PACE is really good if you have a tax appetite, you're looking for tax credits. I think that's the way it works. I must admit, I'm not an expert in PACE because personally, the homeowners in which I serve, I don't use PACE financing, but it's really good if you basically have if you're more well-to-do and you're looking for tax write-offs and credits. Considering PACE is a good thing to do. If you're and it has to be approved county by county, whether or not, because it's a property tax thing, right? So basically what you're doing is the cost of your solar is rolled into your property tax. So yes, it creates a lien on your property. And that is the main reason why here in certain counties in California, they do not have PACE. Because if homeowners should default on their property tax payments, they could lose their house. So it's good to be aware of that. And if you're paying your property taxes and you're not worried about that, and you're a well-to-do homeowner that has a tax appetite, you might want to consider PACE financing.
I see. So what are the most typical way, other than paying cash, that people choose to make those payments in your experience?
Well, I'm seeing a lot of cash buyers now over the last 3 months right now because of the interest rate changes. And then the other thing I've seen is an uptick in leases and PPAs. I've also noticed more people are more interested in that. The loans, not so much, unless they can unless you're ready to put a really hefty down payment. And we can use a loan which has a low to no dealer fee. We have 5-year loans which have practically no dealer fee on them, and then you can pay that off quickly. And in fact, in some cases you can pay it off, and the way these loans work is that you have like the first 18 months of a loan, the payments are lower because they're expecting you're going to put your tax credit back into the loan by month 19. So sometimes you can even get the loan paid off even before you're ready to before they even start charging for it. I know that was very simple. There's a lot more details to talk about exactly how that works, but
you just mentioned the magic word of tax credit. So as we mentioned in the beginning, the Inflation Reduction Act has come out with a whole new set of incentives in terms of tax credit. So can we discuss that a little bit? Like we have had the tax incentive of tax credit up to last year, but now we that includes other things like storage and EV charger, I think, or upgrading the electric panels. So if you can tell me a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Well, I think you did a good job getting us started with that. That's true. And one of the things that we found is that the current tax credit, before this came along at the end of last year, it just came out of the blue. It was such a surprise because the whole solar industry was starting to get a little bit nervous because the current tax credit was only for 26%.
Right.
And it was due to drop down to 22% this year. Right. But then with the Inflation Reduction Act, it's like, we're going to have this 30% tax credit for the next 10 years to 2033. And it's like, whoa, this is great. So what does that mean, actually? What is a tax credit? And what does it mean for the homeowner? The tax credit actually is if you are paying taxes to the government, instead of, and you get that bottom line at the end of you get that bottom line as to how much taxes you owe to the government, right? That number, there. Well, think about your tax credit. The tax credit actually, if let's just say you bought a solar system for $10,000 and your tax credit would be $3,000, right? So that tax credit, so that little number that you see at the bottom of your tax bill, if it says there that the total taxes you owe is $3,000. Well, you can just take that little tax credit that you got from your solar system and you apply it directly to that number. And it's a form you fill out. And so you end up not having to pay taxes on that money. It is a tax credit based on the taxes you owe. Now, I always preface everything saying I am not an accountant. So there are some good documents. I usually forward the tax credit. There is a good document you can get off the government website that explains it further. Read that because how it applies to everybody is different. And also, especially if you're a senior or whatever, and you're not paying taxes, how can you take advantage of this tax credit? Well, that's why you want to go with a lease or a PPA where you don't own the equipment, because the investors who are going to be investing in your solar equipment on your roof, they have a tax appetite. And what they get is they get that tax credit and you get the benefit with lower kilowatt hour rates.
Right.
So it's really good for seniors. So you still get to take advantage of it.
And as I said, it's not just the solar panels. Up to last year, it was just on the
Correct.
solar panels, right? So do you know
That is
what?
correct.
hmm what
And
other things are?
I am not an expert in that yet. Now,
Okay.
I have heard heat pumps are included on it as well, and heat water pumps could be
Heat
included on it.
pump, water
You'd be more of
heater,
an
and
ex,
yes, I
you'd
do
be more
have
of
a
an expert than I would. Yeah. So
yes.
what else? Tell us
Yeah,
what else?
no, there are other things for a tax credit. Like you can get new windows, you can get new door for your home, and get those tax credit is not that high, but still for doors and windows, I think you can get up to like $200 for one door, and you can also get tax incentives for getting an energy audit done. You get $150 tax credit.
That's
But so
great.
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So so is it the homeowners can expect the solar installers to provide the documentation to verify that in order to get the credit um, acknowledged?
Yes, usually with solar, if you're just looking for the tax credit for solar, all it
Mm-hmm.
requires is your invoice, and that
Mm-hmm.
you file. I'm terrible with remembering the numbers. It's one form. It's like
Mm-hmm.
one sheet of paper that gets
I
filed
see.
with your tax return. If you buy your solar this year, you will
Mm-hmm.
file that with your 2023
I
taxes.
see. I see.
One piece of paper. Now, one thing you mentioned something that I want to just raise, that we were talking about tax credits and incentives.
Mm-hmm.
There is a website that you can go to see to see the incentives available in your area, and it's
Mm-hmm.
called Desire, and it's spelled DSIRE, DSIRE.org.
Mm-hmm.
And you could just look up your state and look up your area. And there's all sorts of incentive programs there for all types of energy purchases that you might be considering. So all of the things that we've just been talking about, you
Mm-hmm.
can see them at a statewide level on that website.
I am so glad you mentioned that, Carol. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I love resources. I'm a
Yes,
resource junkie and a
yes,
tool
yes,
junkie.
yes. Between you and I think we can create an encyclopedia for energy
Oh, there you
efficiency.
go.
Well, do you have anything else that you would like to disseminate for the audience about some wisdom around solar panels and renewable energy?
Well, yes, I would love to say that actually, I don't know if any of you have read the book Drawdown, Project Drawdown, but
Mm-hmm.
it
Paul Hawken?
contains, right,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. It contains, the first version of this book contains 100 things that can be done right now, that are available right now to reverse global warming and to reverse atmospheric CO2 in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
In that book, rooftop solar is number 10 on his list.
Wow.
So it is one of the most effective things you can do as a homeowner to make a difference
Mm-hmm.
to the world with respect to climate, is by going solar. So please do not delay, because our planet will be fine. We'll just be dead. But
Yes,
you
exactly.
know what? We need to make a difference if we want to make this planet a planet where our children and grandchildren are going to be able to
Exactly.
enjoy. So
Exactly.
make that decision now to go solar. It's not only a great decision from a cost-effective perspective, but your grandchildren and their children are going to thank you for the decision you make today.
Well, I thank you for being the advocate and promoter of doing the good thing for our environment. Thank you so much, Carol.
You're
I, I
welcome.
will I will make sure to put a link to your book, to some of the other resources you mentioned on the show note. And you can find Carol online. Where can we find you, Carol?
Upstartenergy.com.
Upstartenergy.com.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
It's been delightful. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. This was Izumi Tanaka with Home Green Home Podcast. Thank you so much, Carol.